but that's all right.
I've pushed the play button. Kia ora everybody and welcome. Welcome to this digital space. Awesome to see some familiar faces and some new ones. Welcome. So we are going to have a couple of people streaming in over the next wee while. So we're going to make a start. And these people will just keep streaming in. That's totally fine. If you have your sound on, could I ask that you just turn your sound off so that we don't have any echoing background stuff? And there'll come a time where we can turn our mics on and have a kōrero together. So know that that's coming. So let's jump into it. Kia ora e whānau, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for this generosity workshop. We're going to be exploring what options are available for us to be generous in terms of volunteering, donating, and in general getting involved and giving back to causes and organisations that you care about. I'm coming to you from Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, and want to acknowledge Waikato Whanui as mana whenua and Kingi Tuheitia. If we haven't met before, kia ora, my name's Gemma, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Seed, and I use she, her pronouns. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We record our workshops and pop them online. So if you would rather not have your face and name recorded, please turn off your camera and change your name now. That would be a really good time to do it. It would be awesome if you could drop a comment in the chat there. If this is your first Seed event or if you're here for the second time, it'd be cool to get a bit of a sense from you all through the chat. So tonight is all about sharing and storytelling, and so we really want to encourage you to be brave and unmute when the time comes to be able to share. If that is just like way too hard basket, and you want to ask a question anonymously, please DM me and I can read that question out for you, either to the group or to one of our speakers. If you don't have a piece of pen and paper or an online notebook, now would be the time to grab that. It's going to be a really interactive workshop and you're going to be doing some creative thinking, which is awesome. Now, before we get into it tonight, I really want to introduce our special guests. We have Kitty Crossland. So you want to give us a wave, Kitty, so everybody knows who you are. Kitty uses she, her pronouns and is a board member of Go Eco, the Waikato Environment Centre, and is in her final year of her environmental planning degree at the University of Waikato. She's passionate about community resilience, alternative economies, and thriving futures. She's a regular at the Kirikiriroa Crop Swap on Saturday mornings at Go Eco, and you can hire her gardening skills via the Waikato Crime Bank. What a kitty, that's so cool. We also have Kia ora. We also have Danielle Marks with us tonight. So wave, kia ora, Danny. Danny uses they, them pronouns and whakapapas to Te Arawa. Danny didn't grow up in Te Ao Māori, but through their venture to university life and scholarships, they're fortunate enough to get in contact with their hapu. Ngāti Keroa, Ngāti Tuara. Sorry, oh my gosh, I made a shambles. And have worked on and are working on projects with them. Being able to give to their hapu is incredibly fulfilling mahi, and they're grateful to be actively working on Papatuanuku and all their whānau. Order Danny, give us a wave. And last but not least, we've got Chantel Cobby, and Chantel's been volunteering with us at Seed for a couple of years now, so it's a real privilege to be able to host you in this way, Chantel, tonight. Chantel uses she, her pronouns and is a recent graduate of a Bachelor of Comms Studies at the University of Waikato. During her time up at uni, she founded Micro Volunteering Collective. Micro volunteering is all about small tasks which add up to big input. So kia ora to you, Chantel, and welcome. So we have a couple more people streaming in here. I'm just going to make sure that everybody's in the space. Awesome to see some messages coming through in the chat already as well. Thanks for that. So tonight is all about thinking through how you can be generous. And so I just want to acknowledge Louise actually before we go any further. Louise Hutt's on the call as well. A lovely way from Louise. Louise has actually curated tonight and put together some fantastic resources to help us think through giving back to the community. So a massive mihi to you, Louise. So where to from here? I'm going to share a visual with you that we're actually just going to work through a series of questions so that we can kind of arrive at a statement of how we're going to give back and navigating the different layers that we need to go through to get there. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's hope this works properly. Share screen. Share. Okay. Can everyone see a really pretty visual? Yeah, groovy. Okay. Thanks, team. So we're going to go through 3 steps tonight here. How do you want to give? Where do you want to contribute? What causes are you passionate about? So this is a good time to get that pen and paper out because we're going to run through a series of questions now. And then we're going to hand over and hear some awesome stories from our guests about how they give back to our community. So step 1, what do you have to give? So regardless of what you want to give, it requires some commitment and some scope. So when we think about money, what's an appropriate amount and how regularly do you want to give if you want to give money? Only you can decide what's appropriate for you based on your financial situation. And there's a couple of different ways that you can give money. You can give a one-off payment, you could give weekly, or you could give monthly, which might mean that you're giving regularly smaller amounts that add up over time to something quite significant. You can set up regular payments via internet banking or via the organization's donation platform or even payroll giving. And we actually have a whole lot of information on our website about payroll giving, even if you don't want to donate to Seed. There's some really cool resources on there to help figure out how you can set that up with your employer. I, for example, as one example, give to the Waikato Women's Fund here in Hamilton, and I just give $10 a month because that's all I can do. And my little $10 adds up with a whole lot of other little $10 and actually makes something quite significant to make grants to women and girls. So there's lots of different ways we can do money if that's where we want to go. If you'd like to give your time, here's a couple of different questions to think through around that. How much time can you give and how regularly can you show up? Do you want to make a regular commitment with your time or a once off? Do you want to go and do a tree planting day, or would you like to regularly prepare and organize the behind the scenes for the planting day, for example? What does it look like in your schedule? So knowing if you're studying or if you're working or if you're a parent or whatever your situation is, what time is available within your week? Where are you willing to create that time? Can you give a one-off day on the weekend? Maybe you want to give a few hours a month. Maybe it's a bit less regular than that. Maybe it's a couple of times a year, or maybe it's weekly and you want to do it quite regularly and being quite engaged with what it is that you're giving back to. If we think about expertise as something else that we can give, this is thinking about how can our skills and capabilities that we already have support different causes. What kinds of opportunities might be available around the skills and capabilities that you have to offer? So thinking about what different sectors you've worked in or work in, or what kind of skills you do have that might be missing within an organization or could potentially strengthen an organization. For example, an organization might need some new photos for the website. They may need a new accountant. They might need somebody to write their newsletters for them. They might need some people to get together and organize a fundraiser. So you kind of reflect on some of the skills that you've developed over the years and think about how they might actually be able to be of service as well is a really awesome way to think that through. You want to understand how your expertise could be of most value to the organization. So you might want to consider taking on a governance role. You might want to think about sitting on a board. You might want to think about taking on a voluntary role within the organization. So it may be more operational. And the donations of your expertise are usually best established through talking to an organization to establish how you can best be of service. So you might be able to notice some things on the outside, or you might already have an idea about what it is that you want to contribute to with your expertise. But pick up the phone, go and have a visit, send an email, and understand what are the opportunities for you to be able to engage that they currently have at the moment. So that kind of works us through step one. Do we have any questions that have popped up as a result of thinking through money, time, and expertise? If I don't see anything in our chat, we will move on to the other piece. No, we're looking good. Okay, groovy. Okay, so our next step in this process is to think about where do you want to contribute? So is this something you want to make a difference in locally, regionally, nationally, or internationally? When you think through that scope, that's going to give you a different lens on how you can give back. When considering where you want to contribute, you want to remember that starting local is often the best approach. It's where you can directly see the impact you're having, and it's where you're more likely to be aware of the needs and issues because it's where you live. It also makes you more connected to the community around you. And from experience, it also gives you a really amazing opportunity to meet some friends as well who have similar values to you. You may want to be wary of overseas organisations which promote volunteerism, which is where people volunteer while they're on holiday, which has been proven to have significant negative effects on communities they're supposed to help, especially around exploiting children. You may also want to be wary of humanitarian organisations whose underlying religious history or mission may not actually align with your values or beliefs. For example, organisations who support those in need, but not if they're from the LGBTQ community. That applies to both local through to international organisations. So how do you decide what organisations to choose? And this is often the real tough piece around there's so many things you care about, what one is it going to be, or you've got no idea where to start and haven't really thought this through. So this brings us to step 3 and really thinking about what it is that you're passionate about. And Louise has done a really brilliant job here in kind of thinking through the different pillars of what this might actually look like. So what are you really passionate about? What would have made a difference in your life if you look back? What vision do you have for the future if you look forward? And how could these organizations help it become a reality? This is definitely the hardest choice in a lot of ways, which is why we've got some great speakers here to talk about how they have figured this out. So I think the other thing's really important with this is that by starting with one organization, it doesn't necessarily, or one cause or one passion, it doesn't mean that you're locked into that thing forever. It might be that you want to commit to 6 months of working on a particular or working with or volunteering on a particular cause and finding your feet within that if it's not something you've ever done before. So you can start to try and figure out what it is you actually really like and don't like. And that might be a really strong foundation for jumping into some different organizations and getting aligned with some other causes. So I think that's probably enough from me for now. I'd love to be able to throw over to some of our speakers to talk about their experiences and their stories. And then at the end, I think we'll come back together and have a conversation and hear what's come up for you in navigating some of these questions. It'd be awesome to be sharing and hearing from each other what it is that you've come to as you work through these 3 kind of steps. So first up, we have Kitty. Kitty, I'm going to invite you to unmute and share a little bit about your story here. Um, do you want to start off by telling us about what the Kitty Kitty Crop Swap and the Waikato Time Bank are?
Sure. So I am generous with two different organisations which both fall under the Go Eco Waikato Environment Centre. So the first one that I got involved in is the Crop Swap. And that's basically a way of sharing all of the abundance that you have from your garden or from your pantry. So we meet once a month and everybody just brings all the extra stuff that they've grown. So this week I'm taking a whole bunch of lemons because that's what I have. And then we all put everything onto one big table and then you just take what you need. So one week you might take heaps of stuff and your pantry is already full, so you don't take anything home, or you just take a couple of things. Or if you're a student like me, it's a really good way of getting heaps of fresh produce that's grown locally. And then I'm also part of the Waikato Time Bank, which is a really cool way of sharing your expertise, which you might not even realize you're an expert in. So basically, the way it works is everybody's time is worth the same value, and you can offer a skill and you just pay it forward into the community. So like I've created a garden guide for Sarah, and then Sarah might sharpen knives for Preet, and then Preet might teach me how to make Indian meals. So you're not directly like paying it forward and like helping each other out, but you're just paying it into the community, and then the community helps you. So it's a really cool way of doing things. Like I wouldn't say I'm a garden expert and then I've got expertise, but I know a little bit more than somebody else, so I can help them.
Oh, wow, that's so sick. Is there a way for people to see what is available on the time bank? Like as a side note, is there like
Yeah.
a web
Um,
where we can kind of scan and see all the opportunities?
yeah, so there's a website. Maybe Louise, do you want to post the website into the chat? So it's like a baby Facebook basically. So everybody has a profile and you can post offers and say, like these are my skills. Like for example, I've got some running offers that are always there. So I offer proofreading and research. And then somebody can click on my profile and see that that's what I want. And then you can also post requests. So like this week, I'm going to post a request for someone to come and fix my sewing machine. um, and then someone will be like, hey, I'm great at fixing sewing machines. And they can click on that and send me a message.
Amazing. Louise has just popped the link in there. Thanks for that, Louise.
Thanks, Louise.
How do you work these into your schedule, Kitty? The crop swap is once a month, right? What about the time bank?
So the crop swap for me is super easy to work into my schedule because it just brings me so much joy. Like it's 1 hour a month on a Saturday morning. It's this coming Saturday if you guys are interested. And you show up, it's super fun, super chill. Everyone just has a bit of a chat. And so it's not that big of a commitment. But it's cool because you can talk to somebody 1 month and they might say, oh, hey, I want to make kombucha. And then the next month you'll go and they'll say, like, I've brought my kombucha that I made. And so it's like really exciting. And then the time bank is also really good because all the skills that I offer, I can do any time of day from home. And I can vary the like how active I am. So if I've got lots of assignments, I might just not be able to respond to people's requests. But if I'm like, hey, I've got like an hour, it's 10 o'clock at night, it doesn't really matter what time it is, I can just like proofread something for somebody. And it's really quick and easy.
So it sounds like having something that's kind of fixed, a bit more fixed and quite regular, and then having something that's also really flexible around your life and the curly whirlies that pop up week to week
Yeah.
supports you to kind of hit it and give back in ways that are really meaningful for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What made you choose these projects as the things you wanted to be part of? Because there's so many things out there.
I chose them because both the things that align really strongly with my values. Like I am interested in alternative economies. Like I just think it's ridiculous that in order to have fresh food, you've got to have access to money. Whereas with the crop swap, it doesn't really matter if you don't bring something. Like you could bring a recipe, and all that takes is you knowing a recipe. You can just write it down and share it, and then go home with a big basket of food to feed your family. And the same with time bank. Like lots of things that aren't really valued that much in our society are valued in the time bank. Like if you're, say, a doctor and you're going to give somebody an hour of health advice, that's worth one time credit, which is the same as if somebody was babysitting your kids for an hour. I like that everyone's like equal.
Powerful. So it sounds like there's a really strong values alignment for you, which I guess would also mean that you spent a bit of time reflecting on and defining what you value and what is important to you.
Yeah.
What was that process like?
I wasn't really like heading out looking to volunteer, but I saw on an Instagram story somebody was sharing their big basket of vegetables that they were taking to the crop swap. Shout out to Louise. And I thought, hey, that's really cool. I'm going to go along. And I went and I said, like, this is so cool. I'm coming back every month. And it was through the crop swap that I learned about the time bank. And I thought, yeah, that's just an extension of what's already happening. And it sounded really cool.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for that share. That's so powerful. And I know that both of these are connected to Go Eco, their Go Eco project. So I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about social enterprise as well, because you can also support causes with your money. So, but you can buy something,
Yeah.
you
So
support the cause,
Yeah. Go Eco has a shop, so if you like the sound of Go Eco but you can't really commit to a Saturday morning, like maybe you work or something, you could go into Go Eco and buy like I don't know, like some eco-friendly beauty products or like a beeswax wrap, and then that money goes into funding the other projects that Go Eco does.
So good. So clever. It's such an awesome model. Hey,
Yeah.
I love coming in and finding all kinds of goodies in there. It's such an awesome little shop in Frankton if you're in Hamilton. And there's now an online store, right? Or
Yeah,
has there
there
always
is.
been an online store? Yeah,
It's
that's
just
sick.
a revamp.
That's so sick. Hey, thanks so much for sharing, Kitty. There's some really powerful insights there. I'd now love to jump over to Jenny to hear some of your stories. So Jenny, you're a really awesome example of finding a cause which sits with your identity. And we're really excited to hear your kōrero on this. So can you tell us about Turunanga, I'm going to get it right this time, Ngāti Kia Roa, Ngāti Tuara, and how you've been involved with their work?
Yeah, so kia ora everyone, e mihi ana kia koutou katoa, I tēnā wā o tū tau. So Te Runanga o Ngāti Kia Roa Ngāti Tora just so happens to be my hapu. So on my dad's side, I whakapapa to Ngāti Kia Roa Ngāti Tora, which is about an hour's drive out of Tokoroa. So technically it's actually part of the Waikato Regional Council. So that's regional, it's local. But yeah, so when I started going to university, my parents were like, well, you're going to need some money to buy those expensive law books. So we're going to have to reach out and see what financial assistance is available. And so there was like, oh yeah, we give out grants from, because he was on the trust board at the time. And I was like, oh, well, that's great to know. Thanks, Dad. And then from there, I did a little kōrero at the AGM just to thank everyone and the board and my hapu for supporting me through my first year of university. And with that, and finding out what my degree was in, although the work that I ended up doing was nothing to do with my degree, I started helping out in the in the admin office for the first, my first summer out of high school. And what I was doing was just basic admin database. I was having a look over health and safety procedures for the office and for the marae. And then it kind of grew, and then I started doing our hapu database, which was the first time we had like a decent, coherent looking database of all our hapu members. And then I started getting a bit more involved because I was kind of doing all the work too quickly because they just didn't have the time to do the admin-y kind of stuff. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess we should just put you to work out at the marae. So, because our office is back in the city of Rotorua, I'd go out every other day to the marae, and then I would help out with riparian planting along our awa to help with the through the Waikato Regional Council. They were doing big work on river restoration. So I was doing a lot of that. I was planting, like, I think by the end of it, we planted about 10,000 native trees over that summer and then the winter. And then I helped establish our hapu nursery so that we could create our own system within the iwi and hapu of Te Arawa and beyond, with native plants that were local to the area as well. So that, because where my marae is, it's in Horohoro, which is quite frosty after time. For some reason, the maunga just kind of stops anything and just freezes everything. So most of those native plants can withstand that kind of stuff. But now we've kind of gotten to a point where we now have capacity to have people working there. So I moved on into helping my dad and my auntie establish on one of our land blocks. We're trying to do marakai, which is just our own food garden, to help with food sovereignty, especially after COVID-19. We saw that although there was a Te Arawa COVID plan, there wasn't enough to get out of towners. And so, and a lot of our kuia and kaumatua were kind of displaced and neglected in that time, when there could have been a bit more help. So we're looking into doing a marakai and then doing beekeeping because of all the native trees, and still ongoing research for tuna restoration because of all the degradation from the farms and stuff. We lost a lot of our tuna, so now we're looking at creating a pathway for all the tuna to go from our awa back into the Waikato awa. And yeah, and then we're also trying to establish pest-free Te Arawa 2050, and our maunga is one of the only places with native bats in Te Arawa. So we're trying to do some pest control there. And yeah, it's quite environmental based now that I think about it, and a lot of conservation, even though I started off doing admin work.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so incredible to hear that journey from wanting to connect in and contribute and give back to now, facilitating, leading, designing, creating, curating all kinds of things and being so deeply connected in so many different ways. That's so powerful. You've mentioned so many positive outcomes you've been contributing to with your hapu. What are the positive effects that supporting their success has had on you?
I think because, like in the introduction, I wasn't really growing up in Te Ao Māori. I still don't, even though now people have told me that's conservation work, it doesn't seem like conservation and like in the way it's defined. And I think it's just about my journey on decolonization and realizing how these basic things like planting trees and stuff is conservation, but it's like an act of decolonization for all the hurt that's gone through my my hapu, my iwi of Te Arawa, and just trying to slowly but surely get that sovereignty back, and just being able to look after ourselves and look after our environment how it was intended to be, and just revitalize some of those practices. And I think it's really cool and really it's definitely changed the way I see the world, and definitely impacted me more spiritually than I thought it would. Like now I can kind of relate to the environment a little bit better because I have a better understanding of my home and of my maunga and what that is, rather than just a mountain over there and that river over there. So yeah, that's probably the most positive outcome I've had with going back home. Yeah.
That's like goosebumps. That's so powerful. What advice would you give for other rangatahi Māori who maybe didn't grow up connected with their hapu but want to support their work and be involved? Where do you start?
I've been having this conversation with my partner because she also has been kind of displaced because she grew up kind of far away from where her tūranga waiwai is. So I think it's just finding that one auntie or uncle that you know is like mana as and they're staunch as to the hapu and the marae, and asking them how you can get involved, whether that's just even going to like the AGM at the end of the year usually, or middle of the year, depending on if it's working more of a trust system, or even just emailing the hapu and making sure you're registered as a member of it, because a lot of the times it's not really, because then you can't get those newsletters and you can't be in the know of what's going on. So I think the first and easiest step would be to email, because most marae and hapu and iwi have someone to get in contact with if you just search up. Or just ask your parents, ask whoever you're most closest with from that side of your family, and just be like, what's the go? What are we doing? But yeah, I really like that kōrero at the start where it's asking the people what they need the most rather than imposing yourself. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story, Danny. That's so freaking awesome. And I think Danny is such a great example of wanting to work with an organization where you can really see the impact of your actions. And questioning what you want in return is actually a really important part of this process that we're going on in terms of discovering how we want to be generous in our communities. So I want to pose the question now, what is it that you're looking for in return as part of giving back? We've got some thoughts here. If you want to see the impact of your actions or to contribute to something bigger than yourself, choose an organization who are really good storytellers and regularly check in with the difference your contribution has made. That might be following them on social media or receiving a newsletter, or they might meet regularly and tell great stories about the impact that they're creating together. If you're wanting to find a community to be part of, choose an organisation who you're going to see face to face and can regularly engage with. So you'll probably be looking at something more local or regional. And another thought is that you actually want no strings attached. You choose an organisation who you can donate to, who won't add you to their mailing list or ask you for your phone number or for more money. You might just want to do it really low strings attached. So just a couple of other thoughts there to kind of think through, what is it that you're wanting to get in return from your giving there. And if you want to figure out which organisations you want to support through trying out a bunch of different things, choose an umbrella volunteering organisation like Micro Volunteering Collective. So speaking of, we have Chantel with us tonight as well. So we're going to hear from Chantel a little bit more about what it is the micro volunteering is up to. So sort of Chantel, can you tell us a little bit about micro volunteering and why you decided to start the collective?
Yeah, absolutely. So micro-volunteering is pretty much based on the belief that huge impact can collectively be created when a large group of people comes together to do tiny volunteer tasks. So we exist to break down some of the barriers that may exist to more traditional volunteering, and instead we create just really tiny, bite-sized, easy, accessible volunteer opportunities that people can literally come along to for as little as 5 minutes and still make a really meaningful difference. So we're mainly based at the Waikato University campus, and we hold fortnightly events based around a different cause or a different activity. And that's something that I started up at the beginning of last year, because as a student, I just found that finding volunteer opportunities that fit around a busy schedule and that were flexible around that, and that were just easy to get to transport-wise and things like that, were relatively hard to come by. So I just kind of noticed a gap, and it was, yeah, just born from a personal desire to fill that gap and thinking that if I experienced that, there were probably a bunch of other people that were too. So we've just kind of gone from there.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful and so inspiring to have witnessed you just go and do the thing that you want to see in the world. What makes a good micro volunteer? Are there any skills or knowledge or even an attitude which makes the time you spend there effective?
Yeah, well, the cool thing about micro volunteering is there's kind of no particular skills or expertise or anything that's needed. The youngest volunteer that we've ever had at our events was about 7 or 8. We've supported high school students, university students, right through to retirees. So it's appropriate for anyone at all. And we've noticed everyone brings something a little bit different. And that's what enables us to create the change, is that there isn't a certain skill set you need. Everyone brings what they have, and together that creates something. But yeah, I think micro volunteering is a little bit different to volunteering. So I guess the closest thing I can think of is just a sense of open-mindedness, I guess, to looking at a new way of volunteering and a new way of being generous. Yeah, just a little enthusiasm around that, of course, but yeah, otherwise appropriate for anyone.
That's so good, and I'm sure would be an amazing way to be able to meet some new people as well, which is so important for our well-being, to be connected in with whānau and community, to have those interactions. Hey, so many wins, and then the good feels of giving back. How would you like to see the micro volunteering collective grow? What kind of impact would you like to see in 5 years' time from people being involved in micro volunteering?
Yeah, well, we've loved just being part of the growth so far and seeing people rally around it, and just, yeah, being able to bring together more events. So just being able to continue that would be absolutely amazing. I'd love to see micro volunteering kind of go from a concept where we are having to explain what it is and what it means to just being something that's really normalized and mainstream. And just having people regularly, give 5 minutes and make a difference. Yeah, in terms of more tangible ways, we're kind of in the process of trying to expand our impact beyond just Hamilton, where we're based at the moment. We're looking to support schools and to support communities around New Zealand, to champion their own collectives, and sustain their own ideas and events and things like that. So we'd love to see that happen. And yeah, just have anyone just making it real normal, to give a little bit of time and, yeah, care for their community while caring for themselves, and building a community around them.
So powerful. So powerful. Thank you so much for sharing your journey over the last 2 years in building this thing, and some of the real ways that people can give back and feel good in the process. We're now going to jump into a little bit of time for you to think through what this all means, and how you're going to make sense of it from your space, your place. So I'm going to bring the template guide back up. Hold please while I do this screen share thing. Share. Okay. Can we see the things again? You with me on the template? Groovy. Okay. So I'm bringing this resource back up for us to really sit down with our pens and paper. I might actually just have a bit of time here. I might put on some music or something. But check back in with yourself, and let's use the template as a guide to work through your thinking. So it might look like the example we have on our sheet. I'm going to be generous with my time on a monthly basis for organisations who work in domestic violence locally. Or you might have decided to give money as a once-off, but are stuck with trying to figure out what kind of impact you'd like to have. If you want, you can drop a comment in our chat here, and we can support each other to kind of figure this out. If you're not quite sure what kinds of organizations are out there, this would be a really good time to pop in something you're passionate about and see if we can brainstorm together what some of the different options are. And if you would prefer to just have a bit of space and time to think through what this actually means for you to arrive at your statement sentence there, just use this time to do that. And yeah, we'll just maybe give ourselves a couple of minutes here to just kind of think this through. I'm going to try and bring up the chat. Actually, it might be good if you want to take a photo of this, because I can't actually open up the Zoom link and have this open at the same time. Sorry, team. Oh no, I found it. Sorry. Okay, cool. We can see Louise. I'm going to be generous with my time on a weekly, fortnightly basis for organizations who work with children. That's a really awesome example. Yeah. If you've already come to what it is that you're going to give, can you paste it in the chat? It'd be really awesome to hear where you're coming to on this journey. And if it is, like I said, that you're not quite sure what are those particular organizations that could fit within the areas you're passionate about, pop it in the comments. You know, I'm interested in the arts, but I don't know what arts organizations are around locally. And let's see if we can kind of brainstorm together if you're having any troubles figuring it out. Somebody said, Gemma, can you tell us a little bit more about the Waikato Women's Fund? So the Women's Fund is a giving circle, basically, where anyone can give any amount, and then we all have the same voting rights on where that money gets granted out to into the community. I'd ask you, Louise, if it's possible to post up the link to the Women's Fund in our chat so that people can find the website if that's something that they'd like to get involved with. I really don't like to be too involved with anything I give money to, so it's really nice they send out a newsletter every now and then and talk about times when they're going to be making a vote and when all the members are going to come together and make a vote. Thanks, Louise. And that's perfect for me. It's really little involvement, but I know that my $10 is stacking up with a whole lot of other $10, and together we're able to make a really cool grant to the community. So giving circles are another way that you can make a difference. If that's something of interest to you, check the chat there. Can see that B has signed up to Daffodil Day. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hoping to collect some money. Awesome. So it sounds like you're going to be fundraising later this month. So you're going to give your expertise potentially locally around Daffodil Day. That's awesome. Nikki, awesome to hear. So you're teaching natural healing. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, there's lots of comments coming in now. Everything's moving so quickly. Teaching at your Marae, working towards starting. Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. That's so powerful. Where is the best place to access giving circles? Amy's asking. Gosh, does anybody else know about any other giving circles? I'm only familiar with the Women's Fund, in all honesty. Rimu, I'm going to be generous with my money on a monthly basis for organisations who work in domestic violence prevention and shelter provision in Aotearoa. Powerful. Awesome B wanted to volunteer in a rest home. Oh wow, you guys are really doing so much here. This is awesome. Age concern across the country, do visitor matching. Awesome. Volunteer Waikato are another really awesome umbrella organisation locally. They've got an office in town that you can go and visit. and they can really support you thinking through some of the different volunteer opportunities and some of the different skills you've got and how they could be connected up. They've got a lot of listings on their website as well, Volunteer Waikato. If you're still a bit unsure and just kind of want to see what's out there in terms of volunteer projects or opportunities. Pretty sure there was a giving circle in Rototuna, absolutely, yeah. Was that like the 100 Club? I think there was like 100 people that gave $100 or something. And then there was some people that pitched and got the funding on the night. The Funding Network is another one that's Auckland based. They have a bunch of people come together and then they all seed fund an initiative on the night. Run through the keg room, yeah. Awesome, Helen. Some creative and one-off volunteer opportunities available via Help Tank. Awesome, Nikki Lee also asked Hapu Iwi org to grow native plants. If I could buy the plants, they asked for me to teach them in exchange for plants from my marae. I find when we give from a place of love and being genuine, by giving, we receive in return, and so the cycle continues. That's beautiful, reciprocity, eh? Does anyone else, while we're on this call together, want to jump on and actually just share? I'm going to stop my sharing here. Someone want to be brave and unmute and talk about what they're going to do as a result of coming along to this workshop tonight.
I can go. Kia ora, my name is Rimu. I volunteer for a bunch of different organisations, mostly with my time at the moment. I am a tertiary student, so I don't have that much money. And I recently started donating to Black Lives Matter organisations in America, especially with the resurgence that's happened with that movement. I felt really kind of helpless in those first couple days, and really hunted for a good donation site, and I set up quite a hefty sum to go through to them because I felt as though that was the best that I could be doing, and in that I realized that I set it up as a rolling donation without realizing. So as a result of seeing the resources tonight and kind of just interrogating the fact that I do give a lot to a lot of different sources, just realizing that that amount isn't really financially viable for me, and just to cut it down to something that I can actually manage, and realizing that that's okay, that I can do that without feeling guilty for letting anyone down. Yeah, that was really helpful to see and to kind of think about what I'm doing.
Kia ora, Rimu. Thank you so much for that share. That's so powerful. And I definitely can resonate with wanting to, seeing a lot of really important work go on by great causes, and also not wanting to have a scattergun approach to my giving as well. So I had been quite intentional in the last 12 months myself to really think about what are the one or two things that I'm going to give to for just the next 12 months. And that's been really helpful for me, and I think helpful for the organization, because if they receive, say, $100 over a year versus $10 over a year, it's going to really support them to do a little bit more meaningful work, hopefully, or increase their reach and impact. Would anybody else like to jump on and share what they've taken from tonight, and or any actions they're going to take moving forward?
Kia ora, Gemma, everyone. My name's Mel. I was really interested in what you were saying Kitty earlier about the time bank, and I've kind of been nosing on their website ever since. Looks really fun. I'm in a bit of a unique position where I want to volunteer to help, but I don't have too much time or energy due to an injury. So being able to do little things in a time where I can potentially behind a computer is something that would be easier for me than previously, where I used to be a Sunday school teacher and be jumping around and doing the choreography and having to use a lot of energy. So yeah, I've kind of been feeling a bit empty lately, that I haven't been able to give my time. Time is kind of important for me. But I like how you listed the 3 things, Gemma, of the time, the money, and the expertise. I think that's quite good. Yeah, so yeah, just wanted to say that's kind of what I'm thinking of, and I'm halfway through signing up, so we'll see how we go.
That's incredible. And it's also, I think, just so fantastic to be able to see how volunteering can be a lot more accessible through exploring some of these different stories and these different pathways. It doesn't necessarily have to be about moving into a different physical space. So it's really awesome to hear that this is something that's going to support your well-being and that you'll be able to connect in with a community of like-valued people. Thank you so much for that share. Maybe time for one more before we wrap up. Is there somebody else that would like to share?
I can go. Just a huge thank you to everyone who shared their stories. Like, it's just cool to hear about different ways to volunteer, and it kind of sparks things in you. I'm about to have my first child, and I'm a little bit in an interesting position of kind of changing my generosity. So I'm usually far too swamped with work and pretty limited on time, and I usually do kind of expertise kind of giving or monetary giving, but with being on parental leave, I think that's about to change. So I've been definitely going to look at different options for more social generosity options, like visiting the elderly who might appreciate seeing a little baby, things like that. Some cool things to do with a pepe. So thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Such a cool reflection, and amazing as you transition into motherhood. Okay, everybody. It's been a really awesome time together. Thank you so much for carving this space out and for jumping on to have this conversation. I can really get a sense that people have been able to be inspired and sparked, and might have created new possibilities and opportunities for you. And you know, the Mental Health Foundation says that giving back is one of the key pillars to well-being. So it's really awesome that we're able to explore this space together tonight and think about how we might support our communities and support ourselves to be well. Where to from here? I really encourage you to jump into our Seed Waikato Whānau group. We've got a closed Facebook group on Facebook, and there's a list of organisations in there that might further spark some other ideas. So we encourage you to jump in there and keep the conversation going. Really, I think that the most important thing here is that you turn this inspiration into some kind of action. So get in touch with the organizations and start being generous about you know, your time, your expertise, or your money, and do the thing. We're also going to be sending out an email with a survey, and it'd be really awesome if you took a couple of minutes to share your feedback with us, and most importantly, what that action is. So yeah, we want to say a massive thank you and massive mihi to our 3 guest speakers tonight, Danny, Kitty, and Chantel. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories. We'll also include the amazing resource that Louise developed and designed that you've seen tonight, so that you can have that as a reference point to talk about giving with your whānau and your friends and your community, and hopefully you can be a ripple for inspiring more generosity and more volunteering across the community. So thank you so much for being part of this, and we will see you again soon. Akite.